Hello and welcome to the Outcast. I'm your host HC, and with me is.
Wolf.
And today we're here to finish the journey, kinda, sorta, not really, with The Witcher Season 3. So, just to back you guys up, in case you haven't seen the previous times we've talked about The Witcher, I haven't read the books and I haven't played the games. Nothing against them. It's just that I'm not much of a book person. And a friend got me The Witcher 3 for my birthday last year, but I am backlogged beyond belief on video games, and I know it's gonna be a big one, so I just didn't have the time. I'm sure it's great because
It is.
I'm. I mean, look at that. I look at the fan base. It has this fan base for a reason.
Hi.
But yeah, so Wolf is the fan among us, and
Mhm.
regardless, I thought season one was alright, nothing amazing, but I had fun with it for the most part. And season two, I thought was a complete bore, and I barely remember anything from it. And to this day, it's probably one of the Berkcast Outcast episodes. Any podcast we ever done. It's the one episode where I think I just sludged through the most and somehow had something to say. And gonna be honest, this is gonna be the same here. I'm so sorry.
Well, you're just no fun. I think season
Um,
three is a lot better than season two. I
or
do agree
well,
with you. Season two is a little meh. I had some issues with season two as well, more than season one. But I think season three is
I'll
above it, like
say
way better.
I'll say that season three didn't, make me fall. I remember some things that happened. Might maybe not for maybe not necessarily in depth, but I remember most. Season two, I was just completely blank by the time we covered it. But here I remember a bit more. But you know what? Do you want to talk about the elephant in the room now?
Sure. There's a lot of those, unfortunately,
Oh,
with this
okay.
show, from
Yeah,
my
so you know what?
understanding.
Yeah, so you know what? Before we actually start talking about the spoiler section, because we kind of did say I thought this season wasn't the best. It was better than two, but it's not saying much. We'll get more to why when we talk spoilers. But Wolf, you overall liked this season, you
Yeah,
would say?
Yeah, I would say I
Okay.
overall liked it. There are some slow parts that I thought they could have condensed, and I'm sure that's probably some of your issues too. But otherwise, yeah, overall I thought this is like better than season two. Definitely up there with season one, maybe a little bit better, but like definitely very good.
So which elephant are we covering first?
Well, I mean, I think the biggest one, right, and there's a lot of rumors that surround this, and that's kind of like the smaller elephants to the one big elephant, which is
Mhm.
Henry Cavill will not be playing Geralt after this season. We'll be moving on to,
Yes.
I believe it is Liam Hemsworth.
Yeah, not Thor, the other one.
Yeah. so, it's definitely sucks because I think everyone who's a fan of the Witcher series, and I think even you would agree too, right? Even though you're not huge into the Witcher series, that Henry Cavill has done great in this role.
No, he did. And again, I know that we're gonna mention this probably because I believe this is part of the reason why he's not continuing. He's a big fan of the source material to the point he named his dog after Geralt,
Yep.
which is pretty cool.
Yeah, he loves
And
it.
yeah, and like you can tell whenever he's on screen, if even if I'm not interested, you can always see that he puts 110% of himself into his performance, not just as Geralt, just in general when he's in stuff. He's he's passionate about his work and he's doing the best he can, sometimes with nothing. So it does suck that he leaves, and
Mhm.
I'll be honest with you. The reason I'm calling this the elephant in the room is not just that they are recasting him really early on, because from what I know, they are planning 7 seasons of this,
Oh wow, that's not what
and
I didn't know.
Because according
Definitely.
to
Mhm.
Henry Cavill's announcement, he said that apparently the plan was 7 seasons, supposedly.
See, that's 4 seasons of Liam Hemsworth. And to be clear, I think, Henry Cavill himself said it, and I think Liam Hemsworth isn't a bad pick for Geralt. He has the look, and I think he has the chops to do the character. I think it'll be different.
It
It'll take some getting used to, but I think he can do it. The thing that
I'm
I think
the thing,
Oh yeah, go
what
ahead.
interests me though, okay, because I want to ask you as someone who is a fan. One of the things that I've seen in Henry Cavill's announcement that he's, leaving the role, is that the transition would apparently be explained in a lore-fitting way. What do you think that would be?
I I mean probably something to do with magic. I really hope, right, that they do. So in The Witcher 3, like you can do these style changes for Geralt for like his beard and his hair and everything, just a little bit of customization. And it makes him look fairly different. I hope they just do something like that where they just show he's gotten a haircut and like changed up his beard and grown out his beard some because Henry Cavill's not super scruffy looking
Mm,
beard wise, at least as Geralt in this
yeah.
show, and he has longer hair.
Mm,
So I hope
mm.
that's how they do it. Like Geralt has to just go get a haircut and he
You
comes out
know,
looking like
you
Liam
say,
Hemsworth. It's
I'm
kind of
sorry,
stupid and silly, but I kind of hope that's what they do. Personally,
no,
I think that'd be hilarious.
that'll be funny, but also when you said that, in terms of this show, Henry Cavill's beard isn't really up to snuff. But I'm like, did
It's
you?
not necessarily up to
Maybe
snuff.
we
It's
should.
just he's not super scruffy looking,
I
right?
I know, I know, but just when you need to understand that you said it in a world where we know his mustache was badly photoshopped out in the Justice League theatrical release.
We
You need
also,
to.
I mean, there's also the thing of him like from Mission Impossible, just like cocking his fist and instantly growing a fucking beard because the
Yeah,
dude's
that's
just
the
like
thing.
fucking built different, and he's
Yeah.
lovely.
Yeah, no, but that's the thing, because he was committed to that movie, he couldn't shave off the beard. So when they when they did reshoots for Justice League, they had to digitally remove it, and the results speak for themselves. So you need to understand we live in a world where that exists, and you can't talk about Henry Cavill's beard without somebody
No,
mentioning
you can't. I'm just saying, like, generally speaking, Henry tends to stay a little bit more clean shaven than like say Liam Hemsworth does if you see
Yeah, yeah,
images
of
of him.
course.
So like
Mhm.
I think it would just be funny if that's how they do it as like a
Mhm.
nod to the games, quote unquote, It's like, haha, here's a
Okay.
funny thing. He just walks into a barber shop, gets his hair done, and walks out
Yeah,
looking completely
like they'll
different.
have like a shot of him, like of a stunt double from the back, and then he walks out, and it's Liam Hemsworth.
Yeah, I think that'd be funny. And that would kind of like that would work, right? It wouldn't be perfect, but I think it would just be funny and it would work. So that would be
Mhm.
my opinion of as to what they should do.
All right. I guess since you're more of a fan than I am, then I guess I'm just following your lead. You know what? Do
I
that.
mean, I think that's
It'll
what
be
they yeah.
fun.
I think it would just be funny. I think it would be okay enough. But I
Mhm.
mean, I'm not too worried about Liam Hemsworth playing Geralt. What kind of concerns me a little bit more is all the other rumors that have come out, right? Surrounding this, which is a
Because I'll
lot of
tell you
it's
what.
hard to say what's true and what isn't, so I don't want to give it too much credit, but it does worry me a bit when you hear things like, oh, the writers hate, The Witcher, and like they don't really care for the games or the books, and they just want to do their own thing, and Henry was the only one keeping the ship in line, right? Like there's so much stuff that's come out since then, and no one's come out and said anything. And I get why no one has come out and said anything. I don't blame them for not coming for coming out and saying
I
anything, but it makes you worried, right?
I tell you what, because one of the things I wanted to bring up is I've seen some interviews not too long before we started this. Like I've seen some interviews, and my fiance actually forwarded me to one article in particular with the showrunner. And listen, I don't want to assume anything. I really don't want to assume, people have people say stuff, sometimes it's taken out of context in reports and stuff, but
Mhm.
when the showrunner says something which is the equivalent of I'm looking for the title right now as yeah, something here like Witcher producer blames young American audience for viewership decline. Um, and again, there are quotes in the interview which amplify that, and they also said like they tried to defend some changes made for the book, which again maybe they're good changes. I don't know. I haven't read the book. You tell me. But I don't know. It sounds a bit sus, and considering, like we said, Henry Cavill is a big fan, I can see some discussions becoming heated. I'm not saying that's what
Fair.
happened, but I'm just saying from the puzzle pieces we have,
Yeah, no, I
it's a
agree.
very much a possibility.
And I do want to come out and say, like, as a fan personally, so far, like, I can see the changes they've made, and I understand why some people have issues with them, right? Like, oh, crap, I'm gonna get his name wrong. In
We're gonna get
season
to this
two.
in the spoilers
Well, I know.
though,
Well,
so
I mean, I'm not talking about season three. I'm going back to season two.
okay.
Like season two, right? One of the big changes was that one of the Witchers at Kaer Morhen who died was he wasn't huge in the books. He wasn't like a big character, but him and Geralt supposedly have like a lot more of a relationship together, right? And I believe
Right.
it's not Vesemir. It's because that's like his father figure slash teacher. It's the other one. Oh, what was his name? I'm a fucking huge fan here. Can't remember the name.
It happens.
I'm trying to look it up real quick. Eskel, that's who it is. Like he dies in season
That's
two, and a lot of people were upset about that, and I get that, right? Because they wanted to see more of Geralt and Eskel together, because they're supposed to have that kind of bond with one another, right?
mm-hmm.
And like it sucks, but I'm okay with it. And so far, I've been okay with most of the changes they've made. They've been fine, in my opinion. Even going into season three, I've been fine with the changes they've made. I'm curious to see where they go with them and how they tie it into the overall story, because it does seem like they're still more or less following the overall story. And for me, right, so far, the big like thing about The Witcher, right? Like one of the big themes, one of the big lessons to take away from it slash learn is that, hey, neutrality is not necessarily a good thing. That not making a choice is still ultimately making a choice, right? Like that's the big thing here. And so far they've stuck with that and they've kind of pushed that through. And because of that, I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt going into season four and beyond and say that I think they can do this. With or without Henry Cavill, I think they can do this. Now, is that based off of, that's based off of seasons 1 through 3 thus far, right? And is that based off of were they able to do that because Henry Cavill was there, or were they able to do that regardless of him, right? That's the big question. And it does make me a little worried for season 4 going into it, because what is that
Yeah.
going to be like?
Honestly, now that you mentioned that, that because it's an interesting analogy, that the team you just mentioned of everything you do, even if you choose to be ambivalent towards something, is still making a choice. What is this ever? Was this ever like? Is this like the main thing in like the books or the
Yeah, that's
games?
yeah, in the games and the books, like that's one of the big things about it, right? Is that Geralt's supposed to be like in the books. In the games it takes it further because he's, learned more about like, hey, being neutral kind of fucked me over so many times.
And
And in
also,
the
I guess
games they use it as
because I
a
think also in the games you have a choice system,
yeah, you
so
can
essentially
choose,
it's all
you as
about
the
it.
player
Yeah.
choose to get involved or not. Let's be
hmm
honest, you're Geralt, you're going to choose to get involved every single time as a player. But you can play it as someone who never gets involved in any of the
As
stuff.
someone who just who doesn't do side quests until the main story is finished, we'll see about that whenever I get to play it.
I would say you want to get involved because you tend to get way more interesting stuff. But anyways, right? But also it's not really a thing of that's not quite how it works. The quests will just come up and you'll start doing them, and then you get a choice of whether to go further or not. But anyways, but again, like that's what they use it for in the games. In the books, it's more about a thing of it's just a slow evolution of time of Geralt learning, every single time he chooses not to get involved, something worse happens. And,
Okay.
he's involved anyways, or someone makes a choice for him that he just doesn't like, right?
All
Which
right.
that's what's going to happen. And so the entirety of Geralt's like character development, right, is learning that, and even then he still ends up getting involved some way, shape, or form. So his entire, one of the big things of his character development is just constantly trying to stay out of everything, getting involved anyways, being forced to be involved anyways, and then learning that, well, shit, I should have just got myself involved to begin with, and then it wouldn't have been as bad as it was for me. And like that's the idea. And I feel like the show has shown that throughout its seasons, right? Of Geralt, you know, being our big, lovable himbo oaf with a heart of gold.
I guess. So, I guess everything else we might be able to mention as we go along. So, shall we just jump into spoilers?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So, if you haven't seen The Witcher season 3 and you are interested, this is your chance to close the video. We are gonna talk spoilers in 3, 2, 1. Still here? All right. So, I want to ask you something
Mm-hmm.
because as I was watching it, I couldn't like I was wondering, okay? And as someone who doesn't really know the stories and everything, there was I think it was there was an episode around either halfway through or like near the end, I don't necessarily remember, but where it was basically just Ciara in the desert.
Yeah.
Was this taken from something?
Uh, so it's been a while. So I want to be clear to our listeners, right? It's been a while for me for the books. I don't remember everything. I think it was because I think it kind of was, but I do, if I'm not mistaken, Siri gets separated from Geralt and Yennefer for a time, and she ends up with, I don't know if they're called the rats in the books, but she ends up with basically a group that she hangs out with for a while and like learns from. And I think in the books, it's vague in the books if I'm not mistaken. So I'm curious to how they'll do this in the show. I hope they go way more with it and make it more front and center personally. But she ends up having a relationship with a girl in that group, right?
Mhm. All
And
right.
it's really cool, like very fun characters supposedly. But again, it's very fun characters. I don't know why I said supposedly. Very fun characters, but
Supposedly.
yeah, fun supposedly. But no, like it's
They're
enjoy.
fun, I think.
Yeah, it's very much an I think because I can't remember.
Okay.
But I don't remember.
Fair.
I just don't remember if it's vague in the books or if it was more front and center. It's been a while, a long while. But
Mhm.
I know like there's talk about it in the games a little bit and some other places here or there I've seen, and a lot of people enjoyed it. So I hope they go more with it in the show and they do more with it. But
I'll tell you
yeah, like
what, because
I don't remember how they meet, and I don't remember if that's a thing of what happens. If it's similar beat for beat as to what happens here. I think it is, but don't quote me.
the reason why I'm asking you is because I'll tell you what, that episode of Siri in the desert, that was something that I'm like, I was somewhat engaged by that episode, even again for someone who this season also didn't really do it for him.
I'm
And this
surprised.
was the no, this was the one where I'm like, I found myself invested, but I also felt like something was off because it's supposedly this young. What they're trying to get across, I assume, is that there's this young girl who is still not trained, is still has life ahead of her, and she has to go through this this thing which would obviously be a big deal for her. This is obviously something she shouldn't handle. She's not ready for this. But I'm not again, and I'm not sure. I'm not. The reason I'm asking is because this is what they seem to get across, but it doesn't seem to fit with what we saw in the show. She seemed a bit more capable as a fighter before that point. Obviously, after Geralt trains her and everything, but she seemed more capable, and then suddenly you get this where it's like she against the world and she's not ready. And again, the other reason
Well,
I mentioned this is because the actress grew up way too fast, I guess, by the time they filmed this, that she doesn't really look like she looks like a 20-year-old.
I
And
don't
not
think she
to
looks 20.
yeah, which I assume she is. Again, it's nothing against the actress, she's doing great with what she has. But all of this combined, I'm like, is this like? I was wondering if this was like a thing that they felt like they were obligated to put in this season because it's a popular thing from either the books or the games, because it didn't fit well here at all for me.
Well, you can basically scratch the games off of your like anything from their list because the games basically technically the games are not canon. Number one, because
Yeah.
they basically tell a story that comes after the books, quote unquote. So everything you're seeing here is
Okay.
more or less all from the books,
All
or
right,
the writers just
but
make it
I
up.
figured also though, but because Geralt's design looks like the games a bit, so that's why I
No,
was
fair,
wondering.
fair. That's absolutely fair. But yeah, like the majority of it's here is from the books. You might see nods to the games here or there if they decide to do so, but it's mostly they're centered on the books because the
All
games
right.
cover what happens. Well, the games cover their own story as to what they decide, what they created for what they think would happen after the books. If what happens in the
Hmm.
books was
Yeah,
changed up
which
a
is
little
interesting.
bit, we'll say.
I'm still fascinated that the both you can say this and American McGee's Alice are like the only the only real games that are actually based on books,
Mm.
like and are like big names,
Like, yeah, they're
because
not
I'm
a retelling. They're like just based on it's interesting. It's an interesting idea.
yeah.
But
Uh,
to answer your question, I think what they're trying to show is that she's not ready for her powers still, and that's kind of been the focus for a while, right? Because she's not ready for her powers yet. They're still not showing that she's not capable, just that she's not, you know, ready for her powers and able to use that properly yet.
you say that they're trying to show that she's not ready rather than that she's not capable. It came across as if this is if what you're saying is right, and there's a good chance that it is, but it just came across as confusing to me because it contradicts what I saw in this show up until now,
I
to me. And
I think that's fair, right? Everyone's gonna have a little bit different, right, with it. For me,
Mhm.
I felt like that was what they were trying to show, and it didn't feel off to me personally. Now, what I will say is, I'm surprised that's your issue with this scene because I figured you would be more along the lines of, "Wow, this desert scene lasted too long."
And now let's move on to the others.
Fair enough. So yeah, I will admit I personally felt like the desert scene went on for a bit too long
No,
for
that's
the
the thing
final
though, because
episode.
but that's the thing though, that something about that plot actually I found fascinating, because I'm like, I should enjoy this, but it feels like it contradicts itself too much, and then it like kind of those moments where something like hits you, like, were they feeling like they had to include this? Was this like a studio note of we have to adapt this moment and so forth? So I had to ask you, what was their initial idea, because I got confused,
I
honestly.
Again, don't quote me, but I think everything you see here is more or less on point, but changed up slightly here or there from the books to add more because they have to
You
for a
see,
TV
but those
show.
little changes, because again, like I said, I'm not sure. Again, I'm not sure where Siri is at this point when this happens in the books, but she seemed a bit more capable. Like you said, maybe they try to get across the idea that she's not ready rather than not capable. But to me, it came across as this little girl is gonna be eaten alive in the wild.
Well, it's
So
also a thing of right. It's her still doubting herself and not accepting fully who she is, and that she is a
which
child of
which
destiny and she has a
honestly.
big responsibility.
And honestly, if one thing really drags about this is, what, this entire thing, like, I kind of liked in the previous season where it's like, okay, Geralt is like, I'm gonna train you, I'm gonna be like a fun, and then nothing really happens with it, and apparently it wasn't there like a thing last season with like Yennefer trying to kidnap her, and it seemed to be it's cool.
Well, I mean, again, right? Like that's why you had the first few episodes of the season, which we did kind of just skip, but that's fine.
Yeah, I was
Where you
fascinated by this thing. I had to
where you
ask.
see, oh
Sorry.
no, fair, where you see them kind of being like basically a foster family together, right? Foster dad Geralt, foster mom Yen, and foster daughter Siri, right? And that's kind of the whole deal.
Yeah.
And them being like a very found
So
family
this
thing, and
dynamic.
her once again losing them and feeling like and again, like kind of coming back into her abandonment issues of everyone she's ever been close to or considered a family, she's lost, right? And this once
Mhm.
again happening to her a third time.
Yep.
And so it's going into that, and her being really pissy about that and really sad about that, and which is fair. So
It it's fair, but it also feels like everyone in this show just mopes all the time, and it becomes tiring.
I mean, I get it. I
Like
understand, but it is
there's a
supposed to
point
be a bit
actually.
more melancholy. I think
Yeah.
The Witcher
Let me
is.
rephrase. Let me rephrase. There is actually one part that I like, which is like when Siri and that one kid are watching Geralt and the NFL talking. They can't hear what they're saying, but they're kind of doing their
I
voices.
like
They
how you
dub
killed.
over them.
I like
Eh,
how
Yeah,
I like how you called Yasker a kid.
I that's what I remember. Okay, I was fighting not to fall asleep, dude. Okay,
Yasker is like the cool uncle, I think. But
the cool
all
uncle. Okay.
he's kind of like cool uncle, but also older brother. So you're not wrong by calling him a kid.
Yeah.
I feel.
Okay. So,
But
but
I do agree that
basically,
was a great moment of them two
yeah. So
having
it's
a
like,
back and forth while
oh,
Geralt and Yen
it
are
was like,
talking.
is this joy in this show? It's not just people mope about everything. Which again, I get it. They're going for that vibe, but like at the same, at the same time, for God's sakes, be people.
I think. Well, you had Geralt, Yen, and Ciri being happy at the beginning too. Before then, and
Yeah, but
laughing
that's the
together and
thing.
eating
That's
meals
that's
together
the
and being
beginning,
people
and
together.
then Geralt fucks up to chase this one person, and
Because he's been
there's
hunting
this not
them.
yeah, and like then there's this not Siri that he meets, and what the deal with her was, I don't know, and. And now here's the thing. This is exactly what I want to talk about. Like overall, I think this was overall 8 episodes, right?
Yes.
So 8 episodes of all of this. Each episode is like an hour longish. And then the writers have the audacity to say, we are aiming for the TikTok audience who can't focus and we need to dumb it down for them. Listen, as a person with a diagnosed ADHD, I can get bored very quickly.
The
If
TikTok
this
audience
was
is
your
here and they hate it.
no, like listen, if you're trying to aim at people like me who can't or who can get lost quickly, I'm not using TikTok, but if you want to keep me engaged in your show, guess what? Then you failed at achieving that demographic, buddy.
I mean,
that
fair. And
that's
like
just what
hearing that,
I
I
read it.
definitely this isn't. I would not recommend this show to someone who has a low attention span, or who isn't a fan already. I think if you're a fan, low attention span or not, you're going to be more invested
Yeah.
because you have that
Which I
connection.
guess it's fair. It is an adaptation, so obviously there's a built-in audience. But at the
Mhm.
same time, I always say it: you can't trust everyone to just know the source material
Fair.
when you're adapting it. That's the point of adaptation.
Absolutely fair. And
Mm.
I would argue that I think they've done fairly well at making it more open to others to get invested and interested. But yeah, if that's the audience they're aiming at slash for, that's a mistake because I don't
Because I'll tell
feel
you what.
The Witcher is going to
Because
appeal
I
to that kind of
survived.
audience.
Yeah, because I'll tell you what, I survived some info dumping stories. Like, I can get through some Christopher Nolan movies fine. I can get through other shows with a lot of expert. exposition fine. Like I played Metal Gear Solid a few times in my life. Okay, if I am telling you this as someone who managed to follow these kinds of stories and has ADHD confirmed, this is just, it's not a matter that I can't follow it, it's a matter of you're boring me.
I feel Haskier is probably your favorite character, right? Like Joey Beatty is
Yes.
Haskier, like the Bard, Dandelion,
He was all right. He was all right.
because he's probably the only one who's like changes in emotion for a lot of the show.
Yeah, yeah. You know what? Yeah, keep in mind that me and names don't really go together, so I don't
Fair.
really. I might not remember who you're
He's the
talking
one.
about, but
He's the one who
yeah,
has the
yeah.
back and forth with Siri when Geralt and Yennefer are talking, though they can't hear them. Right?
Yeah, so
Him.
like I said, he's the one that actually, feels like, I guess this dude actually wants to be there, and he's not just gonna have this face of, there's a long journey ahead and we need to be ready.
I
But at the
think.
same time, are we ready?
I think. I from what we saw of season 3 and how it ended with Geralt choosing to get involved, right, and with the guards, excuse me, with the guards being rude and like being, hurtful and cruel to those people at the checkpoint, right? I
Yeah.
think you'll be more interested in season 4 moving forward because you're going to see like more from, Geralt and other characters as well as they get like as they're changing up a lot more.
Let's hope, because I'll be honest with you, I'm not sure how much more of this I can take.
You got to go
But
through it all with me, man.
uh, well,
You're stuck in. Let's go.
all right. Yeah, you know what? We survived worse shows, I
listen,
guess.
listen. We may not be getting any more Ruby, so this is the new one.
Wait, what?
We don't
Okay,
know
tell me about
anymore.
this song.
Well, I mean,
Oh,
we
tell me
just they've
about the
not
subtitle. Tell me about the
Sure,
subtitle.
sure.
This is not fun.
Let's talk about
Okay.
Ruby podcast now.
Uh, let's save that for later. Tell me later. But I'll tell you what, though. I won't mind watching a season 4 if there was actually a bit more to it, because, and I'm
Don't
not
expect it to be a
sure.
huge change, mine, but I do think you can expect to see changes, right? Not just because they're changing the cast, the
Yeah.
actor, but also because you're just going to see the characters change a lot going forward in terms of, if I'm not mistaken, what happens in the books and what you're going to see moving forward as we
Yeah.
work
Speaking
towards
of,
getting everyone
speaking
back
of,
together and taking down Vilgefortz.
mhm. So speaking of, as someone who read it, would you say this is faithful?
So far, like, yeah, it's made some changes, but yes, I would say it's faithful. More or less, I would say I'm getting the story of The Witcher. I'm enjoying it. I know a lot of people would disagree, and I understand why they would disagree, but I feel like so far I have gotten the story of The Witcher, of Geralt.
You know, I do want to ask, because there's this thing with adaptations and how much it should change or not. Would you say this is a How to Train Your Dragon, or would you say it's something that's in the middle? I don't know.
I
Like,
mean,
would you
is How
say?
to Train Your Dragon really all that faithful, though?
That's what I'm asking, though. I'm trying to find something, because, like,
Oh,
would you
yeah.
say it's? Would you say it makes all changes like How to Train Your Dragon did to its source material, or is it more, or is it like? I'm not sure if it's the best
I
example,
would
but let's say
say
Harry Potter, where it's the same story but some things are different, which may rub you the wrong
I
way.
would say How to Train Your Dragon made a lot of changes, right? But they
Yeah,
were
again,
good
every
change.
connection
Oh, no,
is
no, no.
every connection.
Yeah, I get you. Like, what I'm saying though is How to Train Your Dragon made a lot of changes, but they were all good changes and worked out, at least for the first film, in its favor. And I would say for the second film too. I, I would say for the third film as well, but your mileage may vary. But in a general sense, they
Again,
worked out for the
that's a story
movies.
for another day. Yeah.
True, true.
But
But yeah, they worked out for those films, irregardless of the changes. It worked out for them and probably made them better for it, right? I would
mhm,
say, looking at Harry Potter, it stayed way more faithful for the most part. I would say this
mhm.
probably sits somewhere in the middle. I think it's mostly staying faithful, but the changes that it has made has worked out for it. Like if you want a good change for season 3, right? And I'm curious to hear what you thought about
Mhm.
this. Radovid,
Okay.
the love interest for Haskier, if you know who
All
I'm talking
right.
about.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not a thing in the books.
Huh.
In the
Okay.
books, that Radovid, the prince, is supposed to be a young boy, and he's just like, by the end of the books, basically all you know about him is that he's hell bent on getting revenge on Dijkstra and Philippa, the spy working for Redania and the sorceress lady who was helping
All
him,
right.
because they
Mm-hmm.
basically fucked over him and his entire family to basically kind of quote unquote take over Redania, and Radovid's hell bent on getting revenge on them and hates all magic essentially. That's kind of the end of his story in the books, really, because he's just a kid at that point. Well, he's not a kid in the show, obviously, and he's having a relationship, kind of forming a
I was
relationship with
about to
Haskier.
say, that's weird. I'm not.
It's
I'm
very
not.
much a different change, and it was, I think, for myself and many other people, like, huh, that's a weird one. Where are you going with this? And then we see how this ends, and now I'm very curious as, huh, where are you going with this? Because it looks like you're gonna do kind of the same thing, but he's not a kid, he's an adult. So I'm very curious right now. Because if they're still gonna do the he's hell bent on getting revenge and hates all magic, I'm very curious because that's interesting. Because
I'll
now
tell
it
you what.
changes up the dynamic a lot, since he's not a child, he's an adult, right?
I'll tell you what. Considering what you just told me, I'm like, at first I was just thinking like, oh, it's magic. I guess we're gonna establish him as another person who's a part of this entire puzzle and knows where this is gonna go. But now that you tell me he's a kid in the original, I'm like, okay. I mean, it would explain why he's, I guess, the most upbeat, maybe, from
Yeah,
all of
so
them.
you kind of liked him, huh?
Yeah, I guess, but again, because like I said, it's like there's this one person who's not like, okay, I'm not just gonna do like those epic dramatic faces that are gonna be on the posters and shit. But it's like, but now that you mentioned that this is a kid, then I'm also like, were any changes actually made to make him an adult, or they're just like, let's make him an adult and not really change anything?
We don't know yet,
Um,
since we've not
yeah,
seen where the show's
you
going
see,
at with the
no,
rest of
this
his
just
story,
this is
right?
just me wondering about this.
But I
As
want
who
to.
just got the news is supposed to be a kid.
Oh no, no, fair, fair. But I want to point out, right? Like from the books, like there's not that much to him. Like what I tell you, that's like all there is to Radovid in the books. That's it. Like you barely even get him as a character in the books. He's pretty much not a character in the books, really, as
All
far as I
right.
remember. So what they're doing here is probably more character than you'll see from him in the books. What they're doing here is a little bit more in line with the games, maybe. Because he's an adult in the games, but again, the games are supposed to be set, after the books, more or less.
All right. So
So it's going to be interesting. Like, that's one of the things where I'm moving into season 4. I'm a little bit curious. I won't lie.
you say okay. I'm just confused. I don't know what's going on
I
anymore.
mean, to be fair, I think everything with this show, you have been confused.
Yeah, I mean, I followed season one fine. Season one was all right. Like
I'm
season two, both.
surprised. I'm still surprised by that because a lot of people said season 1 confused them more because it flashed back and forward and they didn't get
Yeah, no,
the flashbacks.
it definitely kind of confused me as well. But I think there was more meat holding it together when back then, because and now I'm just what is going on anymore? Why are characters doing things? Why is this progressing the way it is? What is going on? Because I'll be honest with you, and now you're telling me all this stuff about the books and what they changed. Honestly, you just talk and I'll react. I think this is what this podcast is gonna be. I I don't know anymore.
I mean, it's fair. again, I'm still enjoying
Is
it.
this how you feel? Is this how you feel when we do a podcast about the Sonic thing and I'm have to explain to you
No,
stuff? Is
I'm
this
able to
how it is?
mostly follow Sonic. Now, if you start getting into Sonic stuff I've not seen, then I can't follow. But if it's something I've seen, I can follow mostly. It's pretty straightforward.
All right.
Blue hedgehog go
Good. I feel
fast.
less
I get
bad
that.
about myself. I have no idea what you said. I just said that I feel less bad about myself.
Blue
Thanks.
hedgehog go fast. That's what's not
Yeah,
to get.
yeah, there you go. Well, honestly, what does not to get about, Superman with the long white hair killing monsters, but apparently that's really complex.
I mean, to be fair, there's not been a lot of monster killing in this show. We kind of dropped that after season one. We kind of dropped that in season
Actually,
one.
yeah, holy
But
shit, you're right. Like, isn't it like the main thing?
no,
Isn't
it's
like the
not.
main thing he does or something?
It's the main thing in
Oh,
the games, but it's not the main thing in the books. The main thing in the books is really it's about series story. Like season one
mhm.
cover basically the books are set up and designed in a way where season one, if you want to go for it, season one of the show basically covers where the first book or two, where it's basically the first book is essentially a collection of short stories revolved around Geralt and some of his different experiences and the people he meets along his travels. And then you get into dealing more and more with Ciri and her story, and that's where it really starts to become a story with, I believe, I think it starts with Sword of Destiny, and then it goes into Blood of Elves, Time of Contempt, and more stuff from that, right? More stuff
Gotcha.
from, and it's three books at that point following Ciri's story. Supposedly, he's now the author. Fuck, what's his name? I believe it's. I want to say, yeah, Andrei Sapkowski. He is writing a fourth book now, so we get a fourth book. Ooh.
How? Wait, you say he's writing a fourth book. I thought there were more than four books by this point, or maybe I'm
A fourth
misremembering.
book in blah, 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 in like series story, right?
Mhm.
Let me make sure. But like I think there is technically yes more than four books. Let me make sure.
So until
Uh,
Wolf figures this out, I just want to say that I'm sorry if it sounds like I'm hating on the show. I really don't want to, but I'm sorry to the fans. If something bores me, then it does. It's nothing against the show in particular, even though I think I have some beef with the writers for saying what they said. But if you enjoy the show, that's perfectly fine, and don't let me take it away from you. I'm glad that you are enjoying it, and maybe the future seasons will convince me.
yeah, there's a lot of different, but there's quite a few books in the series, but I think like series story has only been three-ish books, right? More or less. So there you
I
go.
gotcha.
But he's writing
I
like
get.
either another book in just the overall series, or I think he's writing, if I'm not mistaken, a fourth book for series story.
Mhm.
Again, don't quote me. I'm not kept up with all of it. I'm definitely a fan. Cough, cough.
All right. I get. Well, I guess I don't have much choice. I have to believe you.
Yes, you do. I could be lying,
Mhm.
but you'll never know.
Yeah, unless someone in the
Commenters don't
comments
say
is
no.
like,
Don't tell him anything.
no, someone in the comments is like, Wolf is lying to you. But
Don't rat me out.
uh, you
Fucking
may never
traitors.
know.
Don't do it. I'll get you. I'll ban
All
you.
right. So,
So I'll delete
all
your
right.
comment.
Okay. Okay. So what else do we have?
Well, any I'm curious like I personally, I know some people may disagree from our listeners, but I really loved the actor who played Dijkstra this season. I thought he did great.
All right. And I will say, if I may talk about something good, whenever the cinematography and fight scenes and all the around stuff, like the outfits and set design and stuff, all of those are doing a really good job. Like, even if I have no idea what's going on because I zoned out of the story, it's a well done show in those aspects. I must commend it for that.
I mean,
And also, again, actors. I feel like most of the actors are doing a really good job.
yeah,
It's just so
I will
there's.
die on the like whether you like the show or not, whether you think it's been super faithful or not, I will die on the hill that I think a lot of the actors and actresses from this show have been on point in their roles. I think all of them have, you know, basically when I look at them, I can say, yeah, I can see this person as that character. You know, Henry Cavill as Geralt, Freya Allen as Ciri, Joey Beatty as Haskell. You know, the I just mentioned the guy who this season played Dijkstra. I think he did really good for that role. Like everyone has done really well at being on point for the most part for their characters. They've done really
uh,
well
whi-
with that. Like
which is
all the
really
praise.
cool. Honestly, I'm glad that you can look at this and they're like, hey, they actually do great. It's because it does seem like hmm, it sounds like they're really passionate about us. So we talked about Henry Cavill before. You can tell that he's a fan. You can tell that he wants to do these plots. He wants to say this dialogue. I just feel like there's something in the editing or the writing bit that just doesn't go through all the way to the end. I don't know.
And I
I'm
get it.
sorry if I'm a broken record.
I it's again, it's probably not something that's going to be for everyone, right? I very much love it, and I'm definitely here for season 4. Something I do want to talk about since we're getting kind of
Yeah.
close to the end. You know,
Hmm.
we're replacing Henry Cavill. Someone asked
Yes.
me, you know, what other picks would you have picked to replace Henry Cavill? So I'm going to throw the question out there to you before I throw anything out there to you. Anyone in particular
Mhm.
you would like to have seen in the role of Geralt?
Do you want a sarcastic answer or a real
I
answer?
both.
Sarcastic, Ben Affleck.
Interesting.
No, because I said since when we did season one, I said with this voice, Henry Cavill should have been Batman, not Superman. So for that's the joke. That's my
Fair. No,
sarcastic
fair, 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 fair. I get it now. Fair.
in okay. In terms of an actual actor that could have done it, I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think about names on top of my head.
If
Um,
you don't know the name, you can say what they're like most famous for, what you must know them
Yeah, no,
for.
I'm just also trying to think about actors in general that might be able to do it. Like maybe Tom Hiddleston,
Hiddleston.
Loki.
Oh, that would be interesting. That would be very interesting.
I'm also saying this because my real life best friend is a big fan of the games, and she also has a celeb crush on Tom Hiddleston. So I'm like, you know what? Let's go 2 for 2 there.
So I have another. So I have what I feel is an interesting for you. One for you.
Yeah.
Are you
Hmm.
familiar with the actor who plays Jaime Lannister from Game of Thrones?
Can't say that I do, but now that you say it, Kit Harington could have done it.
I don't know about Kit Harrington. Like that one's iffy for me. I think he's close. He definitely could do the look. I think, but I don't
Hmm.
know if he could do the character. But
All right.
if you ever get a chance to like watch some of the later half of Game of Thrones, I know it's not good, but I will say I
Mhm.
think the actor for Jamie who plays that, you know, when he starts playing like a more kind of sullen, darker Jamie, I think
Mhm.
his name is, oh, I'm probably gonna butcher this, Nikolaj Coster Waldau. I hope I pronounced that
All
right.
right.
I apologize if I did not, but he plays Jamie Lannister in Game of Thrones. I think he could do it. I really do think he could do Geralt based
All
off of his
right.
performance in the later half of Game of Thrones. So no, Game of Thrones later half isn't good. Just ignoring that part.
Well, again, just because the show isn't good doesn't mean he's not doing his best. So, all right, that's fair. That's very fair. You can't say I'm familiar with him, but interesting. But I guess we do have Liam Hemsworth, so and to be honest, whenever I saw him in something, he wasn't terrible.
I would
Like because
also, there's one other one I'd recommend.
all right, hit me.
I don't know. Do you know who the voice of Trevor Belmont is in Castlevania?
I
I
the
do
name
know.
doesn't ring, the name doesn't ring, but now that you mention it, I've seen like I think I've
It's
seen like a recording session of them. So yeah, I know
it's
who you're talking about.
it's Richard Armitage.
Yeah.
I think he could do Geralt.
Hmm. Yeah, you know what? He could. He could. And it's interesting because the studio who did the Castlevania show also did the animated spin-off for The Witcher.
Mm-hmm.
So it all connects.
It all connects. Time is a circle. But yeah, I think
Mhm.
those would be like, I think Liam Hemsworth's fine. I think he'll do good in the role, or at the very least, he'll be comparable to Henry Cavill. But you know, I think those would have been two interesting and fairly good picks as well.
Mhm.
That would
Yeah,
be
it
my
is.
opinion.
I'm sure he'll do fine. I. Then again, I feel sorry for him because
He
if
has an uphill battle no
everything,
matter what, right?
like for one, he's stepping into some big shoes.
Yeah,
But for two, if everything about the entire thing is true and
literally,
like
Henry Cavill's a big
the
dude.
show, what did you say?
I said literally, Henry Cavill's a big dude.
Yeah. But at the same, but what I'm saying here though is that everything ends up being true, and it turns out that the showmakers it didn't get along with Henry Cavill because he tried to steer the ship more in a direction that fits with the source material and stuff. And then I
I really
already
hope.
tell that no matter how well Liam Hemsworth is doing, I he's going into a very no-winish situation, and I
Yeah.
hope that at least people know that he's not to blame
Mm-mm.
for the decisions of the showmakers. I hope that people will realize that and won't give him too much shit.
I mean, irregardless, right? It's going to be quite some time potentially before we see any of this because fuck you, Hollywood. Pay your actors and writers what
Yeah,
they
among other
deserve.
things. Mhm.
So, number one,
Yeah.
go support SAG after, go support the Writers Guild of America. Like, as much as we might
Mhm.
talk a little bit of shit on the writers and showrunners for, being kind of shit in regards
They
to
are
this
still,
show,
yeah, there
maybe.
are still people
Yeah. And
like
they still deserve to be paid.
there are
And
still people
again,
doing their job, and it's not like they want to. I might not disagree with their views, but everyone deserves to be paid equally and fairly, and we did a whole episode about it. So
or at
yeah,
the end of the day, right, it's also worth remembering no one wants to go into something making something bad, right? They all want to make
exactly.
something good. They may not.
Unless you're Disney lately, but that's another
Hey,
story.
Disney's an exception, not the rule.
I know. If I can throw some shades at the mouse, I'm taking
Always,
it.
always, always, never not do it. We're Disney. You're not. We're not moving slow. You're just moving too fast. But like no one's gonna go into something wanting to make something bad. And I do personally hope that those are just rumors and that's not necessarily true. That that's the case. I think no matter what, right, season 4 and if we get it, season 5 onwards will be the true testament to what was actually true and what wasn't in terms of what we see and
Yeah.
how well it comes across.
hmm hmm Well,
I
honestly, I'll wish them all the luck with season 4. Here's for the best, and may this one actually grab my interest. I'm
I mean,
hoping.
they've got me hooked, so I'm a fan. I'm still a fan. I'm loving the show still yet. I hope season 4 comes out and you're really able to continue on what you've been doing so far, which is in my opinion still been good. I
Here's hoping.
and all the best to Liam Hemsworth. Like we said, he's got an uphill battle, and I feel for the dude. But at the end of the day, it'll be different. It'll take some getting used to, but I think he can do it.
hmm So anything else to add?
No, go watch The Witcher season 3. It was good. No matter what
Get some
anyone says,
pillows.
especially this guy over here, fucking TikTok Zoomer age. Fuck them.
TikTok
That's
zooming
right. I
age.
said it,
Yeah.
Zoomers. Fuck you. You suck. You're ruining my good show. Get out of here, Zoomers.
Yeah, I like again. I love how this is apparently the audience, and yet I never used TikTok in my life.
You're the representative for the Zoomers now, even though you're like, I think just a few years younger, like 2 or 3 years younger than me.
I'm 30 for the
Yeah,
record.
literally 2 years. Yeah, not a Zoomer, but you're the representative for the Zoomers now. Fuck you.
Hey, you know what? People need a leader that's a bit older than them in order to start. I guess. I'm
I
just, I'm
guess.
All right. So, on this positive note, I suppose
Mhm,
this was
mhm,
it for this
mhm.
episode of the Outcast. We hope you enjoyed it. What did you think about The Witcher season 3? What do you think about season 4 and the direction this show is going? And do you think Liam Hemsworth is a good Geralt?
Who would be your
Uh,
pick for Geralt if it
and
wasn't
who
Liam
would be
Hemsworth?
your pick? And please, somebody say J.K. Simmons because it'll be funny.
That'd be wonderful. He has to do
Okay,
the
so
J.K. Simmons, like the Spider-Man voice, right? What's that character's name?
and J. John
Yeah,
Jameson.
he has to do that voice for Geralt, though.
That's his regular voice, you are
I mean,
aware.
I'm aware he has to do that voice, but in that style the entire time as he plays Geralt. Then it's just,
Alright.
that's beautiful.
Siri, come here and give me pictures of Spider Man. Wait. All right. Anyway, so everything I just said, you can tell us all about it in the comment section below on our
Mhm.
Tumblr, which is Berkcast Team, and on our Twitter, which is Berkcast with a capital B, capital C. So until the next episode, I was HC.
I was Wolf.
And we will see you all next time. Take care.
Bye bye.